As the primary season evolves and candidates coalesce their platforms, one debate topic that never gets overlooked is education. They all say education is important. Candidates love talking about education. If you don't talk about education, you hate children. You want children to grow up deaf, dumb, and blind so you can employ them in your cotton fields to pick cotton for the rest of their lives. And if you don't talk about funding education, well, that's the same thing as imprisoning people into a life of ignorant, illiterate poverty simply because of who they are or where they live. You see, you can't talk about the funding of education and actually get away with it unless you also talk about spending lots of money. Americans are kind of like that. We like spending money on things. And by spending money, I mean other people's money, because let's face it, it usually is. And the next time you see someone from the 53% that pays federal income tax, you can personally communicate your heartfelt thanks for their kind generosity and guaranteeing such things even get funded at all. But that's the funny thing about spending other people's money. When it's your money, it's spending. When it's someone else's money, it's investing. Investing. That's the kind of wordplay gymnastics I talked about in my video about words. You can watch that video here. As Americans, we pay a lot of taxes. Well, I mean, some of us do. I don't know about you, but I think I pay my fair share. I think I pay my fair share because every April 15th, I feel like I've been financially acerated by a gang of scheme-assed IRS agents. Democratic Party Chair Robert Strauss once said, "Success is a little bit like wrestling a gorilla. You don't quit when you're tired, you quit when the gorilla's tired." The gorilla in this case is the public perception that a good education should cost a lot of money, and when the education is substandard, more funding can and will fix the busted system. We hear that all the time, don't we? We need more funding for education, as if we spend too little. And by too little, I mean more than every other industrialized first world country on the planet on a pure student basis, other than Austria, Norway, Luxembourg, and Switzerland. You know, rich countries that actually have some spare change and aren't approaching national debts of 20 trillion fuckaroonies. And yet our testing scores are nowhere near the top 5 in the world. In fact, we're garbage in most of the major important subjects like mathematics, science, language, and geography. The United States is just 17th across the board and a miserable 26 out of the top 34 industrialized countries in mathematics alone. So how much do we spend? Well, it's almost $13,000 per student per year. Just take comfort in knowing the educational juggernaut known as the Slovak Republic spends half we do and achieves the same results. So there's no definitive relationship between money spent and results gained, and candidates that try to bullshit their way past that small detail are confusing correlation with causation. In fact, you can make an honest case that within our own border, the facts say just the opposite. The worst performing school districts in America spend the most and achieve the least. But the politicians cannot sell that narrative because figuring out why that is far more difficult than simply spending more money on the problem and hoping for a different result. There's a word for that. So why do our schools suck? Well, I sort of consider myself an expert on this topic because I spent some time in the U.S. public school system. I also did hard time at the university level. All told, I've got 17 and a half years of hands-on empirical data, and based on my firsthand observations, here's where we're going wrong. First, we've got too many lousy teachers. Now, I know what you're saying. Chris, you done pissed me off now. You can't go there. Oh, I'm going there. Criticizing the teachers like criticizing the Pope. It's looked as a crime against humanity. The Pope is pure and perfect, and teachers are one and the same. That's what we're told anyway, but I have a different experience that calls bullshit on that, and here's why. In 17 years of schooling, from the time I was wearing Garanimals to British Knights to university hoodies, I had exactly three teachers that injected enough of a positive impression upon me to actually remember who they were. Now, I don't know how many teachers I've had, but it has to be at least 100, and 3% success rate is not something to brag about. So why only 3? Part of the problem is too many teachers are fossilized corpses walking around the halls of American public schools counting time rather than making their time count. They got so many years until the mandatory teachers union raises kick in, so many years until the pensions kick in, and these teachers are all but impossible to fire. The only thing harder than firing a lousy teacher is hiring a competent one. And that's half the problem. Young, energetic, charismatic, passionate, enthusiastic, fresh, and emboldened teachers are dying for a job and an opportunity to make a difference in our kids' lives. But they can't so much as get a job interview because there are no jobs to be had. Why on earth would any teacher retire when they've got what amounts to tenured status? Step number 1 is to eradicate all the dead wood standing in our public schools and replace them with new teachers that are ready to take on the world. Financially, this costs us nothing. We're simply swapping old parts with new parts. In fact, It may even save us some money because new teachers will probably make a starting salary rather than a tenured one. And it shouldn't be that difficult to attract good teachers. The narrative about teachers doing it for the love of the job and not the money is complete mythology. The average teacher's salary in my state is $57,000 a year, which is a king's ransom higher than the average salary of my degreed profession, journalism. Had I only gone into teaching, I'd be far wealthier than I am now. Teaching is not a bad gig. $57,000 a year salary for 8 months of work is like someone else with a $78,000 a year job that's working year round. Name another profession that gets 3.5 months off in the summer, 2 weeks in the winter, a week in the spring, Thanksgiving break, Easter break, more national holidays off than a Federal Reserve Bank, snow days, and in many cases accrued rollover sick days. I don't know about you, but there could be 10 feet of snow on the ground, and even if it takes me half the day to shovel my ass out of the driveway, I either show up for work or I'm out of a job. Now I know what you're saying. Damn it, Chris, you just have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea how much work teachers bring home with them, from grading papers to buying your own school supplies to attending parent-teacher conferences. And to that I say, every salary professional brings their work home with them. Hell, I did more work at home than I did at the office. And the rat bastards made me use my personal cell phone paid for out of my own pocket for business use. So that dog won't hunt. We're all overworked and underpaid. It's called being employed. Okay, so what do we do with the remaining teachers that we haven't fired? You know, the exceptions to the rule that energize their classroom and actually motivate a 15-year-old kid to get out of bed at 6:15 in the morning and attend class? Well, first, we double their salaries. By giving a boot in the ass to all the teachers mailing it in, we siphon the money and reward the teachers doing what all teachers should be doing, and that's making learning fun. That's my second fix, by the way. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. That's not to say there aren't tough days in the classroom for both teachers and students. Tests and quizzes must still be given, textbooks still read, but the overall process should be so enjoyable and fun that you almost forget that you're learning at all. That's the way it's supposed to be. And that's the way those 3 special teachers I mentioned earlier made a lasting impression on Mr. Chris. I actually wanted to be there. All the other classes, it was like watching grass grow. How many years can you watch grass grow until you finally tune it all out and throw in the towel? We have too many classrooms filled with bored kids, taught by zombies, taking place in rundown classrooms that were once brand new and perfectly suited for learning. So we've addressed a few key problems here with some sensible, common sense solutions that don't force us to throw more wasted money down the rabbit hole of the Department of Education. But I got another fix here, and this one doesn't cost us anything either, but it's probably the most important fix to the problem. So we've got to fix the American home. Learning starts in the home, at the dinner table with parents that give a shit. Unfortunately, 65 to 75% of people that choose to spawn are probably overestimating their ability to be a responsible parent. When you have ignorant, uneducated, thoughtless, careless, self-absorbed, self-entitled, pernicious couples fornicating like rabbits, well, it should come as no surprise that the offspring are carbon copies of mom and dad. And that's assuming dad's even still around for the kid's first day at kindergarten. Apples never fall far from the tree, garbage in, garbage out, monkey see, monkey do. However you choose to define it, a problem child tends to come from a problematic household. And it's really hard to blame the child. It's hard for even the best teachers to undo all that damage in an 8-hour day. Behavior issues, laziness, inattentiveness, poor grades, whatever the crutch is, it probably started in the home and it's now a problem in the classroom. Not only does it hold the affected child back, the baggage shortchanges the rest of the kids in class trying to learn something. Teachers are forced to spend too much time babysitting and not enough time teaching, and that's patently unfair. Now, in a perfect world, I'd love an aptitude test to get a license to go legally procreate, but short of that, we're going to have to live with dumbasses raising dumbasses. But we need an incentive, at least, to inject a greater responsibility when parents fail to do their part. Schools should be afforded the authority to issue in-school suspensions to parents and the ability to kick kids out entirely when they're a disruption to the classroom and the students around them. A student's right to an education is not absolute. Live by the rules, behave yourself, or emancipate and go pick cotton for the rest of your life. And when parents don't do their part, punish them harsher than the child. Once again, we've improved the entire system without spending a dime. Improving our schools to be competitive with the rest of the world is not a financial challenge. It's a people challenge. We're falling behind because the chess pieces on the board are inferior, not the playing board itself. Too many teachers are lousy, too many parents are lousy, and too many students suffer because they are being crushed by a giant I don't give a shit sandwich, both in the home and in the classroom. Both sides are culpable, but neither side ever wants to shoulder the blame. Simply tax more, spend more, and hope things change when there's no evidence to support it. Alabama Democratic Governor George Wallace once said, "Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever." And that kind of sums up the American education system in a nutshell. We've segregated the relationship between autonomy over local school needs and the local school fundraising to see those tailored needs are met. Instead, the system is a giant albatross run by bureaucrats in Washington that apply a one-size-fits-all solution to tens of thousands of unique state and local school districts that are as diverse and different in both wants and needs as colors of the rainbow. Let me end with this. I've spent the last few minutes pissing on every third rail in education, but that doesn't mean I don't sympathize or empathize with the good stewards fighting the good fight both in and out of the classroom. I've got skin in the game because I come from a family of educators. My sister has spent 25 years teaching special needs kids and first graders in some of the poorest communities in America. My grandfather was both a teacher and a superintendent. No one appreciates the challenges in education more than I do, but we're 20 trillion fuckaroonies in debt. We have run out of other people's money, and we've run out of chances to fix the problem with another blank check. But can a political candidate step up to the podium and label it a people problem instead of a funding problem? It's pretty doubtful. We can't stop what we're doing. Well, I mean, the gorilla can't, which kind of means we can't, right? And what about that free college education Bernie's promising? Stay tuned for that.